It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 26th of January. It is 012626, and this is the C Block. Right, John?
You got it absolutely right this time, Brad.
Man, it's amazing I get anything right. Okay, John, for a minute, let's talk about the shooting in Minneapolis. Have you seen any of this video?
I have, yeah. And when I saw it, I was curious as to your thoughts because you always have opinions on both firearms and de-escalation, and you have a pretty critical eye for this. So what did you see, or what do you think about this?
I don't know. This one's tough. I mean, I think this is a bad shoot, to be honest with you. I really do. I almost hate to say that, but, you know, put yourself in the position of these guys who have been, I mean, you know, they're followed all around. You know, we've had stories about how they can't get hotels. They get kicked out of hotels. The hotels they sleep in, the people are outside banging gongs and whistling whistles and blowing horns all hours of the day and night. I don't know. I mean, you know, the sad part of this is that it's easy to be the Monday morning quarterback when you're the guy sitting there saying, well, that Renee Good, was that her name? Renee Good, is that what is their name?
Correct, yeah.
Well, that Renee Good, she was actually trying to hit that cop. But when you're standing in front of, and it's interesting because I've heard people talk about a 3,000-pound vehicle. John, I'm a real weirdo nerd when it comes to cars, and you might get a kick out of this. Cars and finance. You know how I know more about the Honda Pilot she's driving than the normal person?
Why is that?
The Honda Pilot became very, very popular a few years back when it was classified in a class of 6,000-pound vehicles, okay, which would be 3 tons. And you know why that was important?
Why is that?
Because you could totally depreciate it in the year you bought it. And just like, for example, if you saw ads before the end of the year, there were a lot of ads on TV and actually on social media for Ford and Chevy with their big heavy-duty trucks, the 250 lines in the 250 line and on up in the Ford and the 2500 on up in the Chevys because of a loophole in the law that if you are a business person and you buy one of those heavy-duty vehicles that is in that weight range, you can depreciate it 100% in the year you buy it. So in other words, if you would have bought it before the end of 2025, you can write off the depreciation 100% in that year. So the Honda Pilot was one of those cars. Don't ask me how I know.
That is fascinating. So, but hold on, Brad. Can we get back to the Minnesota thing? The pilot talk is fascinating. But what do you think happened in Minnesota? Because I've seen people claiming that the gun had a discharge issue or something. What do you think happened?
Okay. Do you want to know the story on this? This is.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's why I ask you.
This is super gun nerd stuff. Okay.
Yep. Get into it. That's why I ask you.
The gun he was carrying is the P3. I think it's the 320. It's a SIG Sauer, the P320. Now the interesting part of this is that let me make sure of that because I'm pretty sure P320. Yes, it's the 320 has become very, very, very controversial in that it was adopted by a lot of police departments and it has a safety issue. The first safety issue was if you drop it, most guns now, most modern firearms are what they call drop safe. If you drop it, it's not going to discharge. Well, that's not the case with the P320. And they've had several incidents. Matter of fact, there was a police officer down in Dallas who was shot in the leg. He dropped his gun. It went off. The other problem is that, and this has been documented on the internet, you can see this, there's probably a couple hundred videos of guys demonstrating this, where if you chamber around and you do a certain thing to the gun, if you like partially move the slide, or if you push the slide down in semi-automatic, the bottom of the gun stays stable, but the slide, when you fire around, the bullet goes out the back, the slide comes back, ejects a round and goes back and strips another round off the top of the magazine and is put in battery and is ready to fire again. If you take the slide, and there's a little gap between the slide and the rest of the gun, if you put a round in the chamber and you push down in the slide, it fires. Now, the interesting part of this is, for years, the Army sidearm was the Colt 1911 up until like the mid-'80s, okay? Then they went to the Beretta 92. Which is the iconic gun, matter of fact, made famous by Mel Gibson in what's the police?
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, Lethal Weapon. Him and Danny Glover. That the one thing where he goes after the sniper, and he because at that point in time it was very unusual for a semi-automatic handgun to have more than like 10 rounds. And if you see that one thing where he empties like a whole magazine, he puts like 18 rounds into the sniper at a school building, and everybody goes, "Oh, gotta have a 92 FS." So they sold the crap out of those.
All right.
The 92 FS has been replaced in the military by which gun, John? Guess.
Let me guess. I have no idea, Brent.
The SIG Sauer P320.
Even though it has firing
excuse me,
issues,
320. Yeah, 320. Yes. And the interesting part of it is there's a recall on this gun if you bought one of the early models. And the only reason why the military is not necessarily upset about it, because the military version has a safety. And me being the gun nerd that I am, the thing I do not like about the Glock pistols and a lot of these semi-automatics, they have no safety on them. Glock says, "Oh, we've got our super safe system." But the problem is, you see this all the time where a guy will reholster his gun, and let's say his shirt gets caught in the holster, and it somehow gets in around the trigger guard. And as he puts his gun back in his holster, it fires the gun because something got stuck in the trigger guard. The military version of the SIG P320 has a safety. Now, I believe in the civilian version you can get it as well too, but most guys don't like that because my son calls that. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Does he call it a tampon?
Well, my son calls that pussy carry. Okay, if you.
Oh, wow. Okay, and he means a kitten there, right? If you're the FCC, we're talking about an adorable little petable kitten.
Yes, because when you carry your weapon, it should be with a round in the chamber and no safety. So in other words, the idea being is you grab that gun out of the holster, and you don't have to think twice about pushing the safety off because there is no safety. So the controversy on this is there are people claiming, and it may be true, I don't know, it could be true, is that his gun went off. And that's what they're saying precipitated the whole thing, that his gun, because I've seen a picture of it, and yes, it is a SIG Sauer P320, and they've had problems with it. I don't know which version he had. You can tell by what they did was they actually changed the literal trigger because the problem they had was that the problem they had with the guns being dropped and going off is the trigger had this is real nerdy stuff, but the trigger had a high mass trigger, and if you dropped them, especially if you dropped them backwards, so in other words, instead of the barrel hitting first, but the barrel hitting last. In other words, if you dropped it on the back of the gun, the trigger would essentially complete its travel because of the inertia. Get what I'm saying? In other words,
I get it. Yeah, which would be quite dangerous.
Right, and a bullet would come up and hit people or go through the roof or something like that. So some people are claiming that that's what happened. Is his gun, as they call it, an ND, a negligent discharge. You like that, John, right?
Oh, yeah, I love it. But hold on, let me interrupt, Brad. At one point, I saw at least one breakdown that showed that the guy was disarmed and that the discharge of the gun happened when the gun was in the hands of a law enforcement. See, I'm not sitting there and watching things frame by frame. I watched a couple of videos, and I thought the whole thing was sort of like, okay. And the problem with this is, John, let's be honest. Just like with the Renee Good thing, you put yourself in harm's way when you start effing with the police. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but I mean, isn't that, and let me interrupt, isn't the idea of their instigation that someone will get shot, hopefully not killed, but someone will get shot and become a martyr, and then it will turn public opinion against Donald Trump? Like, isn't that the entire point of these protests? That is the article I referenced in my B block. That is the title of that article. I know it's on Fox News. People go, oh, it's on Fox News, so why would you believe that? Who cares what critics say? Keep going. Right. It's the idea that, and if you read the story, he was summoned to, and maybe summoned to is a bad way to use that, but in other words, he showed up at that location because of the fact that he's on the network. On his phone, he's on the Signal network, whatever it is, and they were requesting it's some goofy donut shop that they were trying to get some illegal immigrants on, and the protesters surrounded the ICE guys. Now, once again, if you let's say John and I brought a group of friends together, and between John might have about 30 or 40 friends, I might be able to get 2 or 3 people together, and let's say we saw a police officer on the side of the road giving a motorist a ticket,
and we had like a couple 12-passenger vans. We had like 24 people. And we pulled over behind that police officer, and we got out of our vans, and we surrounded the police officer. Do you think that would go well for us?
Absolutely not. And the police officer would be forced to defend himself as he's been trained to do.
Right. And the problem with this is, I heard so many people talk about this. Why don't they shoot him in the leg? Why don't they shoot him and why did they have to shoot him 22 times? Because the police officers are trained to neutralize the threat. And they're taught to not shoot him in the kneecap, but shoot center mass. That is the way it's done. If you have a problem with that, talk to the police people, talk to the police academies, talk to the chiefs and things like that. Talk to Jason Law. He probably can tell you the whole story of why they're trained like that. That's the way they're trained. And you don't just shoot them once, because you shoot them several times because you are neutralizing the threat. And it's a sad thing. Now, there are, the Byrna guns out there and the Saber guns. And if you've seen some of the movies where they use the black, matter of fact, there's a famous Edison episode of Justified where he shoots a guy with a beanbag shotgun, thinking it was a real shotgun. And there are people, why don't they carry that? Well, some of them do. But when you're confronted, just like the example I gave last week, remember that there's that famous video on YouTube where a cop got a lady pulled over, giving her a ticket. Another guy pulls up, going the opposite direction, jumps out of the car and goes after the cop with a hatchet. There's another video that's fairly recent of a welfare check in an apartment building where a cop shows up, and there's some of the neighbors are saying she's doing weird stuff. We think there's something wrong with her. He goes and knocks on the door. Lady answers the door. She talks very nicely to the cop. Then she closes the door on him. He knocks again. She opens the door up, and she stabs him in the face. And she chases him down the hall, and she's chasing him, stabbing him again. And he finally shoots her and kills her. And people go, oh, he should have used less than lethal. Okay, he's already got stabbed in the face. If you watch the video, at the end of the video, after he's shot the woman, you can see blood on his hands and on the gun from him being stabbed in the face and the neck. What are you gonna do? And the worst part is that was filmed right off Central School Road. So to bring it back to A Block, that is why so many members of the O'Fallon Council don't want multifamily housing, because you have face stabbers. John.
And then the guy went to Moe's and he got a little jalapeno juice and he rubbed it on it, and it was like a miracle. It was like better than Seabreeze,
John, are you familiar with Kill Tony?
I've heard of it, yeah. Unlike retired people that I know who claim to not be retired, I don't sit around watching shows all day. No.
You should be on Kill Tony. Do you know the premise behind Kill Tony?
No, I'm guessing they try to kill someone named Anthony.
Well, you try to kill him with comedy. That's the whole deal.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
I was unfamiliar with the show. I thought it was actually a murder show.
No, it's remember the guy, and I'll tell you who the guy is. The guy's name's like Tony Hinchmiller or something like that. Remember the guy at one of the, I think it was at Madison Square Garden, one of the comedians, he's a comedian, this was on a Trump campaign event.
Oh, he said that Puerto Rico was like a floating mass of something, right?
A floating garbage island, that's what it was. That's Tony.
And is he on the show? Oh, no way, really? Oh, I didn't know it was a comedy show. I thought it was like a murder mystery show.
It has gotten huge ratings on YouTube to the point where there's been I think it's coming up on Netflix. I think they do Netflix, and it's at a comedy club, and the basis is behind it's actually sort of an interesting story, is all these wannabe comedians show up and they put their name in the hat or in the bucket or something like that. And Tony pulls out their name and he lets them do a minute stand-up. And then he has his group. He has like a bunch of guys on stage with him, and then they critique them. And that's the funniest part of it, because they have like Shane Gillis on there, and they have and
oh wow, yeah. I didn't know that. Okay,
and then they critique them, and it's rated R, and maybe even a little bit of X. And it's so funny, because that's the funny part of the show, where they're critiquing the comedians, and sometimes the comedians take it well, sometimes not so well, and that's the best part of it. It's called...
Thank you for smartening me up to that, Brad. I would have just gone through life thinking that it was some sort of a Sopranos knockoff.
No, it's pretty funny. And the funny part of it is, and everybody's making jokes at Tony because he's gay, and he openly talks about that all the time, and everybody's always always making gay jokes at him. And what's funny about it is the place started out in California. Now it's down in Austin, and they got kicked out of one comedy club because the owner got boycotted because he had it there. So now it's at I think it's at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan actually owns a theater down in Austin. He moved there. Did you know this? He bought a theater in Austin, and he actually has the comedy show in his theater in Austin, Texas.
No, I had no idea.
See, I'm hipping you up, John. Come on, you got.
Yeah, you are, Brad. I mean, I'll have to. I mean, I won't spend time watching that, but at least now I know that it's something that's worth watching, according to you.
You got to leave the house every once in a while, and you got to stop following Jane Pushkar. You know what I'm saying?
I am. I know. I gotta push a shovel. Okay, and if I push a shovel, then I can eventually push my car.
Say goodbye, John.
See you tomorrow, Brad.